በመላው ካናዳ ትልቅ ሰልፍ ተጠርቷል።
Really derailing our education system because we're focusing sexualization and identity.
መስመር ያለፈ ነውር የሆነ ነገር ያስተምሯቸውና ልጆቹ confused ይሆናሉ።
This is how you need to dress. These are the people you hang out with. That really closes the opportunity for children and they get very confused.
እኔ ወንድ ነኝ ሴት ነው መውደድ ያለብኝ ወንድ ነው መውደድ ያለብኝ።
Some of our children are embracing this because they're told this is a good thing, because they're being told from the people that we trust the most. This could include your teacher.
A lot of family, they have no clue.
They're pushing this on children. They are asking them to act out in certain sexual ways.
ለ12 ዓመት ልጅ ለ10 ለ11 ዓመት ልጅ የተጻፈ መጽሐፍ ልጆቹ እንዴት አድርገው ያንን ነውር በሰውነታቸው ላይ እንደሚፈጽሙት ባዕድ ነገር ሰውነታቸው ውስጥ ከኋላቸው ከምናቸው መክተትና መሞከር እንደሚችሉ
interest groups because they are wanting to push their ideology and they don't care about the consequences to the children.
14 ዓመት ልጅ ጾታ ለመቀየር ከፈለገ ቤተሰቤ ይሄን ነገር አይፈቅድልኝም ብሎ ካሰበ ቤተሰቡ ማናገር አይጠበቅበትም። ልጅ ጡቶቿን ወንድ ልጅ የመራቢያ አካሉን በሰርጀሪ ለማስነሳት የቤተሰብ ፍቃድ አያስፈልግም።
The teachers are telling in private not to tell the children. Do not go tell your mom or dad about this.
If they know what we know, I'm sure no one stay home that day. September 20, they want to come and shout and yell and scream about the children. ሰላም እንደምን ከርማችኋል? ኪዲ ነኝ ከካናዳ። እንደተለመደው ከእንግዳ ጋር መጥቻለሁ። ዴቪድ ይባላል። የካናዳ የዊኒፔግ ነዋሪ ነው። ራሱን ያስተዋውቅልናል። ኮንቨርሴሽናችን ወይም የዛሬ ኢንተርቪው በእንግሊዘኛ ይሆናል። ከዛ በኋላ ብሪፍሊ በደንብ ለእናንተ ኤክስፕሌን አደርጋለሁ። በጣም ኢምፖርታንት የሆነ ነገር ነው። በኤልጂቢቲ ኮሚኒቲ ልጆቻችንን ይሄንን አይዲዮሎጂ ለልጆቻችን ፑሽ እያደረጉት ነው የሚል በጣም ኮንሰርን አለንና ስለሱ ይነግረናል። የሚመጣ ሴፕቴምበር 20 ሰልፍ አለ፣ ትልቅ ሰልፍ። እሱን በተመለከተ ነው። አብራችሁኝ ቆዩ። ከኢንተርቪው በኋላ በደንብ በአማርኛ ገለጻ አደርግላችኋለሁ። First of all, David, welcome to show and thank you for joining us.
Yes, and thank you for inviting.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to get right into it, but before I just want to ask you about your organization. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Then after that, what is all about this event?
Organization is called 1 Million March for Children. It has the numeral 1 in it and the numeral 4. So there's a couple of different spin-offs. You know, some of the organization are hands off our children, keep our kids safe, those kinds of things. But we're different. And I'm not the 1 Million March for Children personal. This is kind of something that has been started in Newfoundland. It's been moving out across the country. And so we are representing this in Winnipeg. And so together with a team of volunteers and helpers, we are taking it upon ourselves to forward this and create this march in Manitoba. But it is a team effort. We rely heavily on volunteers to make that happen.
Before even I know your organization in Winnipeg exists, I was looking at a different city. I was like, I hope this happening in Winnipeg. So here you are. And so a lot of family, they have no clue what's going on in the school, what's going on in the law. So just can you tell us what people should know and that they really should concern or tell me about that?
Yes, they absolutely should be concerned. I think we are in a time, and myself included, I'm a single parent with two young, well, they're not young anymore, two teenage kids. And so the pressure is on to have a career, have a job, pay for everyday things, groceries, and so on. And, we trust the school system that was built by, our ancestors to be good and to be solid and to educate and teach our children. And so over time, we've seen a bit of an erosion on this. And some of this shows up in our academic skills, also our testing. When I look at Manitoba, we rank very low on mathematics skills. And so that raises the question, why are not we suffering? Why are we behind other provinces? And why are we way behind other countries? Other countries, India, China, they are pushing their children far beyond. They know algebra and long division, and our kids here are struggling to make change at a cashier from a $20 bill. And so it raised some alarms with me and got me interested. It's like, what is going on with our schools? Because I was involved in the schools as a volunteer, have been all my life since my kids have been growing. And I'm just realizing there's a lot of gaps in here. We aren't focused on what should be important, and that is to learn skills that will help our children grow to be a productive part of society and contributing and positively. And we find that a lot of the children that are coming through our systems here aren't meeting those benchmarks. And so when we see newcomers to the country, they are taking good jobs. Not that I'm saying they shouldn't come. Absolutely, they should come. But they're taking some of the really good jobs, and our own people are left in the dust. And so we need to correct some of those things. And we're seeing this now creeping in with the SOGI, the sexual orientation and gender identification ideologies. This is really setting up our kids up for failure, as I see it. They're hypersexualizing things. They are going way beyond what our youngsters are capable of and have a capacity of. Because when you think of a child, your son or daughter, who's maybe in grade 4 or grade 5, and suddenly they're being told and instructed by some of these things in schools or special days where they go to the gymnasium, everybody gets a speech through a large audience, and it is really derailing our education system because we're focusing in on sexualization and identity rather than some of those key skills that are going to set us up for success in our career and to further our families.
I agree. Well, we are sending our children to learn, like you said, mathematics and science and biology, all of that. But we're not saying we shouldn't learn basic thing about even, those things they are teaching them. But they are going deep and further. Even they are taking like a parent's place. Well, we don't have anything to say. So more than that, I just want you to tell us, like the first time they are hearing this one, September 20, we have events coming. And I want you to tell us what should we expect from that event, and what should people know why they should be there if they have children or not.
Exactly. And this goes to anyone who is concerned with the direction our country is headed. Our provinces are, in my estimation, overreaching beyond their boundaries. Because again, the province should be focusing in on having a school system that works for children, that produces members that are productive in society. And that's why this march is important. It is a kind of a starting point to a conversation that is going to happen and start to evolve. Because we've been, kind of with boots on the ground in the schools, in the libraries, talking now for several months and perhaps even longer about the content that our children are being exposed to. And there's nothing wrong with a quality sex education program. We encourage that. Those things are important because some parents don't have the capacity to instruct their children on that. But there needs to be a balance. If a parent, for cultural reasons, for religious reasons, or even personal reasons, feels that they are better equipped, and I believe they are better equipped, where they can educate their children as to what is appropriate, what is culturally respective, and is nurturing and moving these children forward in a positive way, the parents do have a better sense of what is expected. And in a lot of cases, we have the grandmas who are doing daycare and stuff while the children are young, while mom and dad are going to work. They can certainly work with some of these things. And to leave it up to the school system to decide, and what I think is a system that is somewhat being hijacked by some interested parties. They want to see this agenda move forward. They want to really radicalize it and hypersexualize our kids for their own gain. That's wrong. It's not their place. And parents need to have a way to get out of that. So this march will highlight some of the stepping stones. Because as you said, some of the parents aren't aware of what's going on. They are struggling to, pay their bills, put food on the tables, groceries, and all those things. And they're busy. They're working 9 to 5, or in some cases, 1 or 2 part-time jobs, and don't necessarily have the time to invest in what education is going on in our school systems. So we've been kind of sitting back and perhaps been on an easy ride for a few too many years, because some of this stuff has already been infiltrating our systems probably since about 2005. In Manitoba, we saw this with the Gary Dewar government, NDP government, who started implementing inclusion in our schools. And we got to see some of these nice words: inclusion, inclusive. These are all really good, feel-good words. And myself included, of course, I want every child to feel included and to be a part of that conversation. But we're finding out the definitions of these words are changing. And they are taking a word or a context where, of course, it would be inviting. Everybody wants to be part of that group. And now they're turning it into something else. And that we have some real problems with, because this seems to exclude more than include. Because if you're not part of the pact, you're not part of this new movement, then you're the person who is the racist, or the homophobe, the bigot, all those kind of other words that we're hearing. And that is really concerning. So this is where the conversation starts. It doesn't end here, because I think change is going to take some time. I've spoken with several of our politicians already on a very intimate level, and they are not aware of what is actually going on in our school systems and what the board members of the schools are deeming to be appropriate. We have librarians who have taken it upon themselves to order books and curate a section of books for children on this trans, this gay movement, all these kinds of ideologies. And I'm not against gays. If you want to do something as an adult or those kinds of things, that's your choice. But what I am saying is our children do not need to be exposed to this at a very young age, because they're not capable of making some of these life-changing decisions. Because we all know as children grow, we experiment. We look at things. One day I want to be a police officer. The next day I want to be a fireman. And the week after I want to be an astronaut. And these are all wonderful things. We'll put up costumes, we'll act out and play. We're going to be out in the playground with people. And so we're going to be doing different activities. However, some of these things, when it comes to this movement, these are life-changing. There isn't an easy exit from this. So once you're kind of indoctrinated into this culture where this is how you have to present yourself, this is how you need to speak, this is how you need to dress, these are the people you hang out with, that really closes the opportunity for children, and they get very confused. Because again, they are going back to this experience they've had on the playground where we can play, or we're playing a board game or a card game at home with family and loved ones. We can play the game, we can role play, we can have a really good time. And at the end of the evening, we put it all back in the box and we put it on the shelf. And the next morning we start fresh. Some of this ideology doesn't start fresh the next morning. It keeps pushing and further. So once you have one set of ideologies kind of indoctrinated in you, because that's what I see as indoctrination, now what is the next stage? Is it removing body parts? Is it having surgery? Is it going on therapies, whether it's hormone blockers, puberty blockers, steroid type drugs, injections, or even tablets inserted underneath the skin that will have a lasting effect for, it's not just months and weeks, but it's years. And some of our children are embracing this because they're told this is a good thing, because they're being told from the people that we trust the most. This could include your teachers. It would include your gym instructors. It could be the social workers. It could be the librarians in the school system. And we've all taught our children to respect those individuals, to look up them as role models. And these people, whether they're aware of it or not, because I've talked to both kinds, because the teachers will go into parental like PD days, and they're going to receive some teaching and instruction for them to carry on to their students. And I think they're largely unaware of what they're being told and what the lasting effects are. Because some of the studies that are coming forward now is the stuff they're pushing on the kids has a detrimental impact. Because again, we talked about inclusion, inclusive, and all these wonderful things, gender affirming, like, good grief. Those are words that sound nice, but have a very detrimental impact, and the children are suffering long-term consequences. And we're starting to see this in dribs. We don't have a 10-year study to say this is good. We don't have a 20-year study to say this is good. We seem to have short-term data that says, no, this has a negative impact, but it is quietly being swept under the rug by these interest groups because they are wanting to push their ideology. They want to say this is what it has to be, and they don't care about the consequences to the children at the end of the game. And so that's why this is a starting point. It's a conversation that we need to have as parents, as caregivers, and as aunts and uncles to our loved ones. And we need to start having this bigger conversation and take it up with the schools, with the education ministers, with our premiers of the province, and say, you know what, we need to have a really serious look at this, because we are starting to see some of these effects where the teachers are telling in private not to tell the children, do not go tell your mom or dad about this. Do not share this information. Keep it secret. And that's just simply not how we should be running our school systems. I remember the day when I would come home from class and I'd have my notebooks, my homework and so on, and I would sit down at the kitchen table and my mom or my dad would be looking over my shoulder. And, you know, at times I would ask them for help too, because I didn't always know what the process was. They needed to be engaged with this and they were helpful. Well, now we're hearing that students are being told that when you get home, if your mom or dad are not on board with this, you need to keep it private. You need to go into your room and you do this all on your own. Do not let them know what you're doing. And that's simply wrong, because I think parents need to know what their children are learning, how they can help them, and how they can further them. And that's the deeper conversation, is what are our children doing and what is all happening? Because we all know they have technology, iPads, you know, Google phones, iPhones, and what have you not. And so they are connected. But what I find really curious, and I tried this out myself with my children. So I have an internet filter on my children's iPad. They will only access certain content. However, they can go into a school library and scan out a book, because it's a self-checkout. They scan their student card, they scan the book, and they can walk out with anything that was for a mature audience, like what I would classify adults. And in some cases, it borders on pornography. The language there is very graphic. The pictures are very graphic. And like, even though it's just artists' renditions of this, but the language is not acceptable for someone who is in grade 7 or maybe grade 6 to freely access this information and take it home. Because at home, on my internet connection, I can put a blocker on it that says, no, we're not going to these websites. We're not going to this place. We're not watching these videos. And if my son or daughter does want to watch something like that, I need to key in my passcode, give them permission, and deem whether it's appropriate. And I think the parents need to have that control and that say of what happens in our schools. We need to be informed. And when it comes to sex education, those kinds of things, I'm used to seeing a card that would come home. The parent would have to sign off and say, okay, you know what? This next week, we're going to be talking about this and this when it concerns sexual content. Well, we're not seeing any of this for this agenda, for this pro-trans movement. I'm not receiving any of those messages from the school. And that is highly concerning, because as far as I'm concerned, this new teaching goes far beyond what would be healthy sexual education for everyday children. Well, you know, I would expect teenagers, not children. They don't need to know a lot of this stuff. They're not capable of it, nor should they bear the responsibility of this. And this is the other thing, is I think of children, let's say teenage children, their hormones are going, there's a natural flow to adulthood. And so now this ideology is coming in, and their system and their way of thinking is being manipulated and changed. We know that the emotions run high when the hormones are running. Men can deal with it a little bit better, or boys, I should say, because of testosterone. They are able to stand up a little more, but it does disproportionately affect girls because they don't have the testosterone or all those hormones naturally occurring in their body. So they are way more susceptible to this. They are way more impacted by this because their body isn't set up to regulate this. And this is on a biological level. So then when these girls are depressed, they're upset, their mood swings, and they're going far beyond what would be normal. And so they're having a really tough time dealing with these circumstances, dealing with all this knowledge that's been forced on them. And even if they were to ask their moms and dads may not know. They don't know what to do with this. This is new. It's kind of coming up to the surface and it's bubbling. And so that's where we're seeing a lot of high rates cases where the incident rate is just way up. It's way over the charts. These children are withdrawn. They're pulling in further and further into this abyss that is uncharted territory for them. And the loved ones who care for them the most don't necessarily have the tools to get them out of there. And I think of situations, to access a guidance counselor at school. You can see them for a few minutes, and most of it is exchanging your personal information, contact information, this and that, and you never get into this because there's so many of them, so many of the children that need access to this, but we only have one, maybe none in our school systems, or maybe two, depending what the school is like. But in the case of a professional, it takes you 2 years to get an appointment to go see a professional therapist and to seek help. And 2 years for somebody who's struggling, we need help this week, this month, not 2 years down the road when the damage may be irreparable and we can't come back to that. So I hope that kind of clears that up, that this is a conversation, it's a dialogue. This is a starting point to raise the awareness, to say, parents, pay attention. What is going on in your communities? And are you approving of it?
Hopefully this will clear a lot of questions. Yeah, thank you. So when you mention about books and teachers, I have some question about that. I have a chance to look at it. It is very disturbing, some of the books, especially one of the books, it calls Let's Talk About It. Mm-hmm. It's really graphic. I couldn't even look at it, never mind the children. So I just want you to tell us about that. Parents should know those kind of books exist, because most of my friends and my around me, I send it to them. Like physically, I can see them. They're shocking. I cannot explain how they felt at work and everywhere. So at church. So I want people to know, because if they know what I know, what we know, I'm sure no one stay home that day. September 20, they want to come and shout and yell and scream about the children. I want you to tell us about this book. And then if you are okay to talk about the teachers, because of she speak up and something was happening, right? So yeah, just tell us about that.
So the books, I know the title that you were talking about. We've looked at a lot of books, and so not going specifically on this book, but in that general theme, because the theme seems to be overwhelmingly similar. The graphic content of this, of what they're instructing, and I say it instructing because they're giving tools and techniques on how to perform different sexual acts on another person, whether that's boy on boy, or girl on girl, or boy on girl. And so this is, it's outrageous, because I'm like you, my first exposure to this was of shock and awe that how something like this could infiltrate an elementary school or a high school, because this is language that I would have thought should have never existed in our school systems, and it's commonplace. What we've found and what I've had confirmation of, a lot of these books were open and free for everybody. And now they're being strategically placed. And in fact, the librarians in some cases will keep them behind the counter. And when they see an opportunity or they think that a child is struggling, they will recommend that the child reads those books. And this is something I find really disturbing, that a librarian who maybe sees that child once every 5 or 6 days during the cycle of the school system is able to make a determination of what that child needs. Maybe that child needs a storybook that's fun and entertaining. Maybe that child needs an adventure book. I really do not think that that child needs a book that goes beyond what I would call pornography, to educate them on a language that they have perhaps never been exposed to, because I was never exposed to this before this. They have the capacity and I would say the right of way to do this. So someone who doesn't know your child is now taking it upon themselves to provide them information. And again, there's no support mechanism here. That teacher or librarian will see that child for a context in that school rotation. So whatever the schedule is, maybe they see him once a week, once every 5 or 7 days, whatever the rotation is. There's no mechanism for them to connect there if this child has questions, if this child has concerns, or if this child is being exploited or manipulated or traumatized. None of that's happening. There's no safeguards in place. And this, again, is going under secrecy where the parents may not know what's going on. That's very concerning, and we can't allow that to happen, where someone who sees that child for 20 minutes or half hour or maybe even 2 minutes, just in passing, say, hey, little Johnny or little Susie, you seem to be troubled. I think this is a book that would be helpful for you. I think you should read it. That much authority to that one person. Because if this child is impacted or traumatized, who's going to rescue them? It's not the mom and dad, because they may not be aware of it and they don't know what happened, because little Johnny or little Susie suddenly changed their whole temperament or is withdrawn. It's like, okay, I need to go to YouTube or I need to go to this website and read this information. And so those kinds of things, they've all been removed, and the parents are feeling helpless because, again, they may not even know what's really going on. They're struggling with, the hormonal changes as children grow up, and they think, oh, okay, you know what? When I was younger, I went through a stage or a phase, and I'll grow out of it. It happens with all kids. Well, this isn't happening with all kids, because this is being pushed on them, and we've never seen it before in this capacity. So I hope that answers some of that. The content in the books is graphic. The language is graphic. And some of the role playing, we saw the alphabet cards come out this past summer from Planned Parenthood and other organizations. If you like them or not, they exist. It's a big organization. And so they're pushing this on children. They're asking them to act out in certain sexual ways that would never be normal in a healthy relationship. The way they're describing what men need to do to women, what men need to do to other men, what types of preparations you need to make for this act to be acted out. Or in some cases, they're being told, you do it until that person feels pleasure. That is completely taboo and should never be accepted. If there isn't consent, and I don't believe that a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old can give consent to having items put inside their body or acts performed on their body physically, that is not acceptable, and we need to put a stop to that. Because this is very damaging and hurtful to a time when the body is naturally developing and the brain is maturing, and you cannot allow other children to perform this, or even in some cases adults. This is what this movement is trying to push forward, where a grown adult is attracted to minor children and there's no consequences. That's okay. that is not okay for, let's say, a 46-year-old man to force himself on a 13 or a 14-year-old girl because he thinks she gave consent. No, she does not have the capacity to give consent. Her body is physically not ready. He has already had all these years of perhaps different relationships and different encounters. This girl may be her first time. And you can think of the body not being fully developed, where you have tearing of the flesh, like vaginal tearing, because they're inserting items that are way beyond what should ever be inserted. And again, the message that we're seeing over and over is you push forward until it becomes pleasurable. That is not acceptable. It is not healthy. I'm sickened here. The hair on the back of my neck is standing up because this graphic imagery that they're portraying and how they're teaching these children how to perform these acts, it's unthinkable. And
very disturbing. Very disturbing.
Very disturbing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like you said, it's long way to go.
Yes, it is.
Start. Change will not come overnight, but it is good we start here. So I just want you to tell us where about this gonna happen, what time. Let us know. Like, I will let them know too with a poster. But
the march that I'm participating in is going to start at the Winnipeg City Hall, and this was kind of the founder of this march, which was Camille Oshik. He was visioning that everything starts at City Hall. I know there's different marches in Winnipeg, there's other ones in rural communities, and that's wonderful. I think you have to do what you're capable of and what you're able to do. So we will start at City Hall, and we will traverse our way towards the legislative buildings, that's Parliament, and we want to have two sets of speakers. And what we have a staging area from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock where parents are going to assemble, children will assemble, and we want to have an open microphone, a platform where mums and dads can come up and share a story, just 2-3 minutes on the microphone, say how they've been impacted, what they're feeling, their children are experiencing in the school. We will get different contexts because we have had situations. I'll tell a little story here about where a mum was dealing with a situation where her daughter was being assaulted in a bathroom, in the girls' bathroom. This was a boy. She protested to the school and wrote letters, and now she is banned from attending that school. So you have an incident where the perpetrator is being protected and not the child, and that is wrong. So then following the staging area at 11 o'clock, we're set to march. We will do our route towards the legislative buildings. And at that point, we're going to have another platform where we'll have some selected speakers. We want to keep it, again, fairly short, that it's not an all-day affair. If it turns out to be a little longer, that's fine. But we want to have a handful of speakers, maybe some parents, again, telling us their story. And hopefully we can get a politician in there and says, you know what, I'm willing to stand up and say, I'm ready to make some necessary changes. We're starting to embark and we're going to have this conversation. And so around that, we hope it will be an inviting atmosphere where parents can share and dialogue information with one another and, pass out information and get people aware that things are happening and this is the place you want to be. We want to set an example to the schools. It's a call to action that we want some of the children attending these marches. With this 1 million March for Children, what we're asking the students to do is to go to this classroom, wherever your school is at 9 o'clock, when the bell rings, when class is to start, you need to pick up your backpack, your school supplies, or whatever you came in that classroom with, and walk out of that classroom to take a stand and use your right to exercise, to protest. The government has provisions for that. It is a legal protest. It's not violent. It is not anything. But we want you to get to a muster point. And in our case, it's at Winnipeg City Hall. This is going to be the gathering place. We're going to be having some speeches in between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. when we will begin to march. And so there we will have a microphone available where parents can come up and tell their story of how they've been impacted by some of the changes in the school systems, how they feel about bathrooms and changing rooms, locker rooms being accessible by men for their young sons and daughters. And this is primarily men. Women, I don't see any reason why they want to go into a men's locker room. It just doesn't make sense. But the men certainly have an allure to that. And certainly the pedophiles in our communities do as well. And so we need to protect our young children from that. We'll have some special speakers and people that are in these against the groups, the ideologies, hopefully a politician or two that can say, you know what, I'm ready to have that dialogue and have that tough conversation of where our country has gone with the laws, with some of the self-imposed rules, you know, because they have been hijacked to an extent. And some of our politicians, like the moms and dads, are unaware of what's going on. And so we want to partner with them and say, you know what, we need to have that tough communication, those tough conversations about where our government is going, where our parental rights have gone, because it feels like they've been stripped, yet the Charter of Rights and Freedoms protects us from that. So why do we not have a say in this? And we want to get back to that table where our elected leaders are held accountable and are working for the people. And if they are not part of for the people, we need to have other ones elected into those positions of power that are going to be for the people and protect their children and protect what we hold dear. And those are cultural things, comes from our different ethnicities. We come from a wide array of paths in Canada. We have, you know, every race, color, creed living here in our cities. And these are the children that our children are playing with on the school playgrounds and out in the city parks and stuff. My children did not know color until it was shoved down their throat. And so, again, this is just wrong. We need our children to be children and allowed to mature in a natural, progressive way and not under ideology of one or the other. Family values are important. Religious values are important and need to be held very sacred and dear. Our cultural history is rich and it's beautiful. And yes, there were mistakes made, but you know what? Every generation has made mistakes, and we need to learn from them and move forward and carry on, because we want to be part of a productive society, a healthy community, whether that's Winnipeg, whether that's Steinbach or Toronto or wherever you're at. These cities need to change and start looking for hope and a resurgence of what made us this great nation, because our forefathers fought very deeply for a lot of these things. We've had them for a while. Good times were here, and now it seems like the good times are being stripped away. And so the gathering at the legislative buildings, you know, it's not going to be a long, dragged out affair. We recognize that moms, dads need to go back to work and do what their tasks are or go home. Same with the children. We don't necessarily want them to be out of school for the whole day. We want them to make a statement. And once that statement has been made, you get back into your classroom and go back to the business of learning good skills. And that is what our hope. We certainly are projecting an image of safety. We do not want any negative impact or negative conversations. We want this to be uplifting and positive. Anyone who has a different agenda, I would kindly ask them just to stay home, be at peace. Let us have a peaceful march, and let us make a statement, because we love on each and every one of these people that live in our communities, no matter which culture they come from. And we love on everyone, including like the gay and the trans communities. We love people for who they are. If you are a mature adult and you choose a certain path, that is your decision. Our issue is with the indoctrination of the children. We need to protect their safety and provide an environment where they can be nurtured and grow up. And when they're grown up and they decide to make decisions, that's okay by me. but I have a duty, I feel, to do this for children because they do not have the mental capacity to make some of these life-changing decisions on their own. And we need to preserve that for as long as we can. And so that is what our day will be. And we hope it'll be very successful. All the indicators are that it will be successful. We have lots of people signed up for volunteering, helping out organize the event. And we also thank the police department and the city of Winnipeg, the legislative groundskeepers, to facilitate us and, back us with this march, because we do rely on them for safety and security as well, for everyone's safety. And most importantly, the children, because we do expect children and students to be there. This may be their first time at City Hall or on the streets of Winnipeg, and we want them to be safe and not have any incidents or anything that day.
Yeah, it will be great. I took day off that day, so I will be there. And please, everyone, this is very serious issue. This is our chance. It's a beginning. So be there. I will be there. And thank you, David, for coming. And if you have anything to say, anything left within supposed to say, and websites to go, if you want to let that.
Yeah, so the websites, I don't know if you can post them in the...
I will.
And so, yes, it's the 1 Million March for Children. And the other one, the organization I'm part of, is unifiedgrassrootsmanitoba.com. And so we have a contact page there. We also have a resource page there where we're going to be putting content like this. Conversations that we're having with everyday Manitobans, everyday Canadians on issues, and provide a porthole where moms and dads can come and just click on videos that are important or documents that are relevant to them without having to search the internet forever, because there's so much confusion there. Not all the wording is correct. The language is different. And so we don't want to add to the confusion. We hope to clarify that and inform people so they can make decisions based on what they value in their family heritage and in their family. So that's really where I think it's a great place to end off on, is we just got to do this, and we have to hold the people accountable, the government accountable, that we aren't going away. This conversation is going to get bigger, and we are going to see some resolutions. And like you said earlier, it won't be tomorrow. Won't be the day after, but it's a process. And right. We are willing to walk that process. We're invested in that, and we're going to see it through to the end. So at times for parents are very difficult. I understand that, young parents especially, they've got lots of stuff going on, but this is a great place to come and get some resources, and it's coming from people that have a vested interest in protecting the children.
Thank you, David, and I will see you at the event, and thank you for your time. I will explain this for my audience, and because most of my audience is Ethiopian and Eritrean, and I want them to be there.
Yes, absolutely. And if there's some volunteers available, we're always taking volunteers. There's a link on the website that you can click on for contact us and volunteer. So it's perfect. Sure. Thank you, Kitty, for having me. Really appreciate that. And I look forward to next Wednesday.
Thank you, David. Have a good day. ተመልካቾቼ በአማርኛ ሁሉንም ነገር እንግዲህ ገለጻ አደርግላችኋለሁ። በውጭው ዓለም ላይ እጅግ በጣም አሳሳቢ ጊዜ ላይ ነው የደረስነው። በውስጥ ለውስጥ እየሰሩም ስለሆነ ብዙ ወላጆች እንደኛ አይነት በተለይ ጥሩ ህይወት ለማግኘት ከሀገሩ ወጥቶ የሚኖር ስራ ስለሚውል በጣም ቢዚ ስለሆነ ስንቱ ወላጅ ነው የልጁን ጓደኛ የሚያውቅ፣ በትምህርት ቤት ውስጥ ምን እየተካሄደ ያለ፣ የትምህርት ቤት ላይብረሪ ውስጥ ምን አይነት መጽሐፎች ልጆቻችን አክሰስ እንዳላቸው ወይም ማንበብ እንደሚችሉ ማግኘት እንደሚችሉ እንደምናውቀው ስንት ወላጆች ነን። በጣም አስፈሪና አስጨናቂ ጊዜ ላይ ነው ያለነው። በዚህ በካናዳ ላይ በመላው ካናዳ ትልቅ ሰልፍ ተጠርቷል። እጅግ በጣም ትልቅ ሰልፍ 1 ሚሊዮን ማርች ፎር ቺልድረን 1 ሚሊዮን ሰው እንዲገኝ፣ ባህል ሃይማኖት ያለው ሰው በቦታው ተገኝቶ እንዲቃወም። ይሄ ኢቨንት ነጮች፣ ጥቁሮች፣ አረቦች፣ አፍሪካኖች፣ ኤዥያኖች፣ ሌላም ሌላም ሃይማኖት ያላቸው ሰዎች ኤዥያኖች ማንኛውም ሰው የኢንቮልቭ ያደረገበት ነው። ዋናው አዘጋጆቹ እንደውም ራሳቸው ኬኔዲያኖቹ ነጮቹ ናቸው። ስለዚህ እኛም ኢትዮጵያውያኖች ሁሉ ጊዜ ንቁ ሆነን በልጆቻችን ላይ በህይወታችን ላይ እየተደረገ ያለውን ነገር ማወቅ አለብን። እንግዳችን ዴቪድ ቀርቦ አብዛኛውን ነገር ተናግሮታል በእንግሊዘኛው። ነገር ግን ይሄንን እንደው በራሳችን ቋንቋ ለመግለጽ ያክል እዚህ በካናዳ ላይ አስጨናቂ ህጎች እየተካሄዱ ነው። ልጆቻችን ላይ ይሄ ተመሳሳይ ጾታ ግንኙነትን እየገፉት ነው፣ እንደ ኖርማላይዝድ እያደረጉት ነው። ላይክ አድርጉት ችግር የለው የሚል አይነት አይዲዮሎጂ ወይም አስተሳሰብ ተጽዕኖ እያሳደሩባቸው ነው፣ ወደ ውስጣቸው እያሰረጹባቸው ነው። እኛ በማናቀው መልኩ በጣም የሚያስጨንቀው ሲያስተምሯቸው እንደዚህ አይነት ነገር ልጆቹ ገና ጭንቅላታቸው ዲቨሎፕ ያላረገ ወይም ያላደገ ስለሆነ እንደምታውቁት ልጆቻችን ዛሬ ፓይለት ሆናል ይላሉ፣ ከሳምንት በኋላ ስትጠይቋቸው ፖሊስ ሆናለሁ ይላሉ። ታዲያ ልክ በዚህ እድሜያቸው የሚሆኑትን እንኳን ገና በትክክል የማያውቁት መወሰን የማይችሉበት እድሜ ላይ ሆነው ስለ ጾታ ትምህርት በጣም ጥልቅ የሆነ ነገር መስመር ያለፈ ነውር የሆነ ነገር ያስተምሯቸውና ልጆቹ ኮንፊውዝድ ይሆናሉ። እና እኔ ወንድ ነኝ ሴት ነኝ፣ ሴት ነው መውደድ ያለብኝ ወንድ ነው መውደድ ያለብኝ፣ ሴት ነው ማግባት ያለብኝ ወይስ ወንድ ነው ማግባት ያለብኝ እያሉ ሲደናበሩ በዛ ሰዓት ያለው ሮንግ ባዲ ወይም የተሳሳተ ሰውነት ውስጥ ነው። ሴት ሆነ ወንድ ሰውነት ውስጥ ነው የተፈጠርከው፣ ወንድ ሆነ ሴት ሰውነት ውስጥ ነው የተፈጠርከው እያሉ ጥርጣሬ ይፈጥሩባቸዋል፣ በራሳቸው እንዳይተማመኑ። በመጀመሪያ በዚህ እድሜያቸው ራሱ ማወቅ የሌለባቸውን መጽሐፍ እኔ በየትምህርት ቤቱ በተለይ ፐብሊክ ስኩል በዛ ትምህርት ቤት ውስጥ ያለው መጽሐፍቶች የማየት እድል አጋጥሞኝ ነበረ። በጣም ነው የሚረብሸው። እኔ እናንተ እንኳን እኔ ትልልቅ ሰዎች የማናቀው በጣም ግራፊክ የሆነ በጣም አስጨናቂ ነውር አፀያፊ የሆነ ልጆቹ እንዴት አድርገው ያንን ነውር በሰውነታቸው ላይ እንደሚፈጽሙት ባዕድ ነገር ሰውነታቸው ውስጥ ከኋላቸው ከምናቸው መክተትና መሞከር እንደሚችሉ ይሄንን ስል በጣም ልቤ ያዝናል። ማመን የማይቻልበት ነውር የሆነ ነገር እዚህ ላይ ባሳያችሁ ደስ ይለኝ ነበር፣ ግን በፍጹም የማይቻል ነገር ነው ለማየት። እንዲህ ለማንም በአካባቢ ላሉ ለተለያዩ ዜጋዎች እንደውም ለኢትዮጵያውያን ብዙ አላሳየሁኝም፣ በብዛት ለተለያዩ ዜጎች ሳሳያቸው ማየት እንኳን አልቻሉ። አረ ይሄ በጣም ማየት የሚከብድ ነው። እንግዲህ ይሄን ለ12 ዓመት ልጅ ለ10 ለ11 ዓመት ልጅ የተጻፈ መጽሐፍ ነው። እንዴት ማድረግ እንዳለባቸው ለምንስ ይማራሉ ያለ እድሜያቸው? ስለዚህ ይሄንን የሰው ልጅ የሆነ ሁሉ በተለይ ደግሞ ልጅ ያለው ልጅም የሌለው እንደው ሃይማኖት ያለው እንደው ሰው በሰውነት የሚያምን ሊቃወመው የሚችል ሊቃወመው ያለበት ነገር ነው። ስለዚህ ሴፕቴምበር 20 በቦታው ላይ ተገኝታችሁ ይህንን ተቃውሞ ማሰማት አለባችሁ፣ ማወቅ አለባችሁ። ልጆቻችሁን አናግሯቸው። እጅግ በጣም አስፈሪ አስጨናቂ ጊዜ ላይ ነው ያለነው። አንድ ህፃን ልጅ ጾታ ለመቀየር የ12 የ13 የ14 ዓመት ልጅ ጾታ ለመቀየር ከፈለገ ቤተሰቤ ይሄን ነገር አይፈቅድልኝም ብሎ ካሰበ ቤተሰቡ ማናገር አይጠበቅበትም። መንግስት ከለላ ይሰጠዋል። ሰውነቱን ሴት ልጅ ጡቶቿን፣ ወንድ ልጅ የመራቢያ አካሉን በሰርጀሪ ለማስነሳት የቤተሰብ ፍቃድ አያስፈልግም የሚባልበት ህግ በመተላለፍ ላይ ነው። አንዳንድ ከተሞች ይህንን ተቀብለውታል። እንዴት ነው በጤነኛ አይምሮ ይህንን የምንቀበለው? ይሄ የሚያሳየው ከጀርባ ትልቅ ገንዘብ እንዳለ ነው። እዚህ ሀገር እንደምታውቁት ድራጉንም ሁሉንም አደንዛዥ እጹንም ህጋዊ ያደረጉት ትልቅ ገንዘብ ከጀርባው ስላለ ነው። አሁን ደግሞ በልጆቻችን ይመጡት። እኛ የተሰደድነው ለልጆቻችን፣ እኛ ብዙ የመከራ ያየነው ለልጆቻችን። ስለዚህ ዛሬ ልጆቻችንን በሚዘገንን ሁኔታ ከእጃችን ሊያወጡ ሲሉ ዝም ብለን የምናይበት ነገር የለም። አንዳንድ ሰዎች እኛ ስለተናገርን ምንም አይመጣም፣ ካናዳ ወይም አሜሪካ ወይም አውሮፓ እንደዚህ አይነት ህግ የተፈቀደን ይላሉ። እዚህ ሀገር የሰው ልጅ በጣም ድምፁ የሚከበርበትና ኃይል ያለበት ሀገር ነው። ዝም ብለን ከተቀመጥን ኦፍኮርስ ኃይል የለንም። ነገር ግን we have a power ምርጫ ላይ በመሳተፍ እንደዚህ አይነት አይዲዮሎጂን የሚደግፉ እንደ ሊበራል ያሉ ፓርቲዎችን በምርጫ ዜግነት ወስደን ምርጫ ማንሳተፍ ከኔ ጀምሮ በጣም ብዙ ነን። ካናዳ ይሄኛውን ፓርቲ መራኝ ኤንዲፒም ሆነ ሊበራልም ሆነ ለኛ ምቹ ነው ብለን ስለምናስብ አሁን ግን ጊዜው ነው። ነቃ ብለን ምን እንደሚካሄድ ማወቅ አለብን። ለምን የመጡብን በልጆቻችን ነው። ስለዚህ ይሄንን ለእናንተ ለማስገንዘብ ነው። ዛሬ ትንሽ ያው ለየት ያለ ፕሮግራም ነው። ይሄንን ቻናል ሰብስክራይብ ያላደረጋችሁ ሰብስክራይብ አድርጉ፣ ላይክ አድርጉ፣ ሰዎች ጋር እንዲደርስ። በቦታው ተገኝተን ደግሞ የነበረውን ኢቨንት ለማስተላለፍ እንሞክራለን። እነዛም ላይክ ኤልጂቢቲ ኮሚኒቲዎቹ ጌይ፣ ሌዝቢያን እና ትራንስጀንደር የሚባሉትን በቦታው ተገኝተው ከኛ በላይ ሊቃወሙን እንደሚችሉ ይጠበቃል። ስለዚህ እኛ ሰላማዊ በሆነ መልኩ እነሱን እየተቃወምን አይደለም። ይሄንን አጀንዳ ወደ ልጆቻችን አትግፉብን እያልን ልጆቻችን ልጅ ሆነው ይደጉ። እንደዚህ አይነት ንግግር እንደዚህ አይነት ነገር አያስፈልገንም። እንደዚህ አይነት ትምህርት አያስፈልግንም። እንደዚህ አይነት ነውር የሆነ አፀያፊ በሰው በእግዚአብሔርም የተጠላ ትምህርትና መጽሐፍትን ከላይብረሪያቸው አውጡልን። ይሄ ነው ጥያቄያችን። ለመንግስት የምናቀርበው ጥያቄና ሁሉም ዜጋዛ ይገኛል ብያችኋለሁ። እናንተም ኢትዮጵያውያን ኤርትራውያን ብዙ ጊዜ በእንደዚህ አይነት ነገር ላይ ወደ ኋላ ነንና እንሳተፍ፣ እንገኝ በቦታው። አብራችሁኝ ስለነበራችሁ እጅግ በጣም አመሰግናለሁ። ቸር ቆዩልኝ።